Hey guys, so one more lesson about unit circle is properties of unit circle. So this is where probably the majority of our EOC questions or benchmark questions are gonna kind of lie, the direction they're gonna kind of be. And so check this lesson out. It's going to really play on some of your memorization. And in fact, it's gonna lay out kind of the basics that you need to know. To answer these questions. This is a really good lesson, and so I hope that you do check out the video because you don't necessarily need it to finish your Delta math, but it is worthwhile. So thank you for coming and hanging out, and let's check it out. So the top of the notes say, just by knowing some basic properties of our unit circle, we can answer a lot of questions about our unit circle. So just knowing a few things, and I've got it listed out here, those properties being one, are quadrants. Do you know where your quadrants are? Complete honesty, in high school, I just felt like none of my math teachers taught it. They just assumed I knew it. And so I would need it this long in whatever class. I'd maybe know it, learn it, whatever, and then forget it. So make sure you know where your quadrants are. We're going to review it here in a sec. Don't you worry. The second thing is knowing where our trig functions are positive and negative. So that goes along with our quadrants. So let me sketch here kind of like our coordinate plane. And for reference, this is first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, and fourth quadrant. It goes counterclockwise starting at the top. Remember, in first quadrant, your X and Y values, everything's positive. In the second quadrant, my X values would be negative and Y values would be positive. Third quadrant, everybody's negative. And in the fourth quadrant, you've got positive X's and negative Y's. Now, X's and Y's, I used that because that's something we're familiar with, plotting points on our ordered pairs, our coordinate plane. Remember, our ordered pairs are also serving the purpose of cosine and sine. So now I've just showed you where cosine is positive, where sine is positive or negative or whatever. So the other one obviously is tangent, and tangent's going to be positive, positive, and I did that on purpose, that order. First and third is positive, and then second and fourth is negative. Now here's the cool thing. My student last year, they the way they memorized it, the way they knew where tangent was negative was it was diagonal this way between second and fourth, which was the same direction like your slant for your letter N. So that was the memorization tool that they used. I'm going to show you one more memorization tool that I like and what you would probably see on some like math tutoring videos or websites is I'm going to call this ASTC. So ASTC, some classes, teachers, tutors, they would say this is all students take classes. Let me write this. All students take classes, just as an acronym to help us remember ASTC. My classes, I used to challenge them to come up with their own phrase for ASTC, and then I would use it for that class period. So I might challenge y'all here in our Google Meets to come up with an ASTC. For example, and you won't be able to use this one, is one of my classes last year came up with all sisters talk crap. So that's what we used in that class period. That's how we labeled our little cheat sheet right here. Well, here's the point. ASTC stands for where our trig functions are positive. So let me write that here. Let's use orange. Where they're positive. Where they are positive. So A stands for all. They are all positive. Sine is positive. Cosine is positive. And tangent is positive. All three are positive. You see it? All right. S in the second quadrant stands for sine is the only one that's positive. tangent is negative, cosine is negative, but sine is positive. Sine is the only one that's positive in the second quadrant. All right, third quadrant, T stands for tangent. Look there in the third quadrant, the only one that's positive is tangent. And fourth quadrant, cosine. Cosine is the only one that's positive. Sine is negative, tangent is negative. So ASTC, super helpful. Quick little label. You can, like I said, I sketch it all the time on my papers or on the board. I make a quick quadrant, 1, 2, 3, 4, ASTC. Now I know my quadrant numbers and I know where my trig functions are positive. If they're not listed, they're negative, right? Okay, the third thing that you need to know to help you answer these questions is how your trig functions are paired. These are the things where I keep saying the special marriages. They are always paired this way. I try to highlight them from time to time. For example, 1/2, if that is your sine or cosine value, it's always paired with square root of 3/2 and vice versa. If you had a sine value or cosine value that was square root of 3/2, its corresponding trig value is going to be 1/2. The other one, and I love this one, is if I have a square root of 2/2, it's always paired with another square root of 2/2. That's an easy one to remember. So those are special marriages. They always go hand in hand. They are walking up and down the street together, okay? So if you have sine or cosine, these are those marriages, okay? All right, so let's look at some examples. Let's see how we can answer these questions just knowing quadrants, where our trig functions are positive and negative, ASTC, and those special pairings. So number 1 says if sine theta is positive 1/2 in the first quadrant, what's the value of cosine? So what I like to do just out of habit is ASTC. This is first, second, third, and fourth quadrants, okay? If sine is positive, so they've already told us we are in the first quadrant. Sine is 1/2. Sine theta is 1/2. What is the value of cosine? Okay, in the first quadrant, all of my trig values are positive, so I know cosine is going to be positive. And my special marriages, 1/2 is always paired with square root of 3/2. Done. Number 2, if cosine theta is negative square root of 2/2 in the third quadrant, what's the value of sine? All right, sketching ASTC. This is first, second, third, and fourth quadrant. They told me we're looking in the third quadrant. In the third quadrant, tangent is the only one that's positive. Sine and cosine are going to be negative. So they already told me cosine theta is negative square root of 2/2. Okay, it's supposed to be negative because it's in the third quadrant. And they want to know what is sine theta. Well, I know because we're in the third quadrant, it's going to be negative. And my special marriages, a square root of 2/2 is always paired with another square root of 2/2. I didn't need my unit circle. I just knew my pairings and I knew my quadrants. Pretty snazzy, huh? Number 3, if cosine theta is negative square root of 3/2 in the second quadrant, what's the value of sine? ASTC, first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant. We are looking in the second quadrant. That's what they said. Cosine theta is negative square root of 3/2. What is sine theta? In the second quadrant, sine is the only one that's positive. So we have a positive answer, and it's always paired with 1/2. Number 4, if sine theta is -1. Wait, Miss Bryan, you didn't say anything about -1. What's going on here? What is the value of cosine and tangent? Hold on. What? Okay. Remember back when we think about our ordered pairs, that is cosine and sine. So we're trying to find an ordered pair that is something -1. And think of this as your x and y, right? So think about your coordinate plane. Where would a y value of a -1 be? Right down here. That's the only place it's going to be. It's going to be one of our 4 corners, and I know they're not corners, but this is going to be down here at 0, -1. So they told me sine theta is -1. The only place where the y value, the sine, is going to be -1 is down there, where cosine is 0. It also asked us what tangent is. Now, your tangent values up and down are undefined. So tangent is undefined here. You can check your unit circle, but that's one of those memorization devices. Up and down would be undefined, just like slope. Okay. Number 5, if tangent theta is undefined, we were just talking about that. Tangent is undefined up here and down here, up and down. Those tangent spots are undefined. What's the value of cosine? All right, so they already told me tangent theta is undefined. This, like if I went to the top point, that would be 0, +1. And if I go to the bottom, that's 0, -1. Cosine is always your first one. What is cosine for both of those points? It doesn't matter which one, right? Cosine theta is 0. Last one, number 6, if tangent is -1 in quadrant 4, what is the value of sine and cosine? So just see ASTC, first quadrant, second quadrant, third quadrant, fourth quadrant. We're in the 4th quadrant. What is the value of sine and cosine? All right, if tangent is -1, wait. Isn't that one of my favorites? In the middle ones are always my favorites. Middle, like those 45-degree angles of each of our quadrants, those are my favorites, where you've got square root of 2/2's paired up together, easy peasy. That's also where your tangents of -1s live. Those are easy memorization tools, so I'm glad that happened. So that is where sine theta is going to be negative square root of 2/2, and cosine theta is going to be positive square root of 2/2. Now, why did I say that? Well, because ASTC, the cosine is always positive in the 4th quadrant. Everything else is negative, right? ASTC, best thing ever. So this is probably what kind of questions you would see on benchmarks, on EOC, using your unit circle. So just knowing some of these basics can make these questions super easy. So we talked about our 4 quadrants, knowing 1, 2, 3, 4, where are those? ASTC, where your trig functions are positive and negative, can help you answer these questions. And then lastly, probably the most important, your special marriages. So those kind of common reoccurring patterns, like a 1/2 is always paired with square root of 3/2. A square root of 2/2 is always paired with another square root of 2/2. Those simple things can help you answer these questions. So hopefully you're practicing with your unit circle. Hopefully you're becoming more familiar with it and using it more often, and you can answer these questions quickly.